This idea came about, I would say, almost a year and a half ago, having looking at Four Freedoms at the Norman Rockwell Museum. I was totally inspired by the fact that it's going to be 75 years old pretty soon. The concept behind it was, what is their freedom like compared to 75 years ago? So we had some discussions, we did some surveys, I had them go out and poll people, and at the same time I did that. Polling my own generation, I started to hear more about, well geez, I hope that we're going to have that freedom of Social Security and that's going to stay around. And what's going to happen to our Mother Earth? So knowing that it was different for me, I knew it was different for this age group, and I knew that I needed to find out what it was, and what a great way for them to express this and give them their own voice.
I did freedom of speech because, I don't know, I feel like now sometimes it's a freedom that we're not really concerned about, but we don't realize how lucky we are to have it. Like in other countries, people are getting prosecuted and stuff for posting stuff or saying stuff, but here you can share your opinion.
I didn't want to make it exactly like his. I'm more focused on the megaphone. I've had experience where my opinion and stuff was kind of overshadowed because I was young or I was a girl or something. So I feel like everyone should have the freedom to say what they feel is right in their opinion.
If your opinion isn't hurting anybody, it should be heard. You may not agree with it, but you should be able to say it.
You can make an adjustment, bring the edge in a little more.
We talked about how printmakers created works. They would actually carve their images out of a wooden block. Over time, that wooden block would disintegrate. The images, however, back then, they would create them kind of like posters. That was their social media. People relied on that before we had TVs, internet, to really get a message out to the masses.
For my fundamental freedom project, I did freedom of media, where we have a freedom to know what's going on. I decided to take a more comical approach to this, where there's this girl who has her phone and there's an explosion behind her, and her phone tells her that there is a nuclear attack and she has no idea. Teenagers don't even need to look up anymore. It's just they get to know, or when they come home they see it on TV or whatever. It's just, yeah, it's sort of ironic, but.
I think why freedom of privacy is important to me, because I feel like nowadays we have so much technology. Basically there's cameras everywhere, watching your every move. So I feel like a lot of people don't have privacy, totally.
Sometimes I just feel like there isn't privacy, but we need privacy because everything's just out there sometimes.
Today's students tend to sometimes hold their cards close to the vest. They don't often reveal a whole lot about themselves. It was interesting to me that a lot of their ideas tended to revolve around this concept of privacy and how your own personal information is accessible to people through either social media or other means. So I think students in general in a classroom setting tend to feel a little guarded at first and a little apprehensive to share a lot verbally of themselves. Through the project, it really afforded me an opportunity to have individual one-on-one conversations with the students to get at what was their concept. What was their concept? Explain it to me.
No matter where you're from, you should be able to get a good education. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much, where you're from, you should be able to get a good education and move on with your life.
I just think it's important because in other countries I know there's not always equal education for boys and girls, so it's something I think that we're lucky to have in this country.
A lot of people aren't able to go to school or don't have as much as we do, so they don't have the opportunities later in life that we will.
Opportunities missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work.
I think choosing what you want to do is important for your character, defines who you are.
Those paths will lead you in any direction.
We voted on what our freedoms as ninth graders are, and freedom of choice was the biggest one.
One student had her personal freedom that she was able to choose what to wear to school. Where she came from originally, she had to wear a uniform to school. And it's something that I think a lot of students here take for granted because we're kind of used to wearing whatever we'd like. We don't kind of realize sometimes that other cultures or other countries have maybe stricter guidelines.
People usually have first impression, and so what I wear really express myself so I can show up. That's who I am.
I chose to do freedom of music because however I'm feeling, like when I'm doing sports, when I'm sad, when I'm bored, music makes everything better, like no matter what kind of music.
As you can see, these are like musical staffs, and there are like musical notes like sharps and like flats and like 18th notes, which is around the earth, which means that everyone has like freedom of music and they can like express their feelings.
I think creativity is really important for like my age group because it's something that like people don't really sometimes like notice, but it's something that makes you stand out a little bit from other people.
I think I was surprised by the variety that the students had. One student had a print that was based on his freedom of travel. I had a student who, felt strongly about people being able to love each other of the same gender.
The theme of it is basically the freedom of love. A lot of my friends are either gay, bi, or asexual, and they get a lot of harassment because of it. Even though, a lot of people accept it, there's still people who talk behind their backs, and it just really annoys me that they're getting picked on because they were just born that way. People should be who they are and not have fear of someone thinking differently of them.
I feel like history is a big part of being equal and stuff because you have to remember how things used to be and how much we've come since. Like Rosa Parks, she was put in jail just because she didn't move her seat on the bus. I did the freedom of women's rights because I feel like women don't get treated as equally as men in some cases, and I did mine based on jobs and how they don't get paid as much as men. Years ago, they were more in the household, doing chores and taking care of children and stuff like that, while the men went out and worked and stuff. But I think if you're a single mother, then you kind of have to do all of that stuff. So I feel like if women don't make as much money as men, it's a lot harder for them to be able to take care of their family and provide for them and be able to keep up with the chores and everything like that.
The times have changed as far as technological advances. I think society is thinking about things a little bit differently now too in regards to privacy and people's rights. So I feel like the students really were very thoughtful in coming up with some of the ideas that they had, and there were things that they personally felt strongly about too.
I knew I was interested in science and health technology, etc., but this project helped me put it on paper. And my sister actually, she had an obsession as a kid with Norman Rockwell, so I kind of knew quite a bit about him, but doing this project I learned a little bit more about his Four Freedoms posters, and it kind of inspired me to do this.
It was interesting to me how the students really, many of them had not heard of Norman Rockwell. They did not know of his impact in the art world. They didn't know who he was. They didn't realize his museum was so close to us in the capital area.
We really got to focus on what it's like to create a poster, and we looked at different posters, not just Norman Rockwell, but we looked at some contemporary ones, and we kind of said, well, what is it about that poster that makes it so powerful and brings your eye in?
This project allowed the students to have their voice come through in their artwork, but whether they go on to do something art and design related or not, I hope that they walk away with at least an appreciation of what art has as its impact on people, on society.